Hi, everyone. How are you doing?
Blessed.
Blessed. Good. Awesome. So good to be here. So good to talk about relationships. I'm so passionate about helping relationships stay together. And so I'm going to talk about today moving from good to great, taking your marriage to the next level, having a rock solid marriage, so to speak. So forgot to introduce myself. I'm Mary Cipriani-Price. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been doing this for over 30 years. I'm also a professor at Azusa, assistant professor at Azusa University, and I used to teach at Bethel, and I've taught at other places as well. So I have that instructor in me, so bear with me. So I want to give you a roadmap to take your marriage to the next level. And I want to talk about the meaning of marriage versus sex in marriage. And I wanted to give you 3 key ingredients that we all need in marriage relationships. And I want you to think of Cord of 3, Ecclesiastes 4:12. A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but 2 can stand back to back and conquer. 3 are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. So I'm going to talk about how the research is now showing us, all the neuro research, all the relationship research is now showing us that actually 2 can stand back to back. You'll have less diseases, you'll be less prone to a heart attack, you will have less depression, less anxiety, and you will actually live longer. And here it was already in scripture in Ecclesiastes. And then we're going to add in the 3rd cord, 3 are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. And we'll get to that, and that is about God in our life. And then what makes a better marriage and relationship. So we'll look at that and move from there. So this is what marriages look like. Okay, so apparently I've done something to upset you. How many have lived this way? Show of hands. Come on, guys, be honest. Okay. So if I told you 1 out of 2 marriages, marriages ends in a divorce. 50% are ending in divorce. That's the statistic right now in the Christian community as well as the secular community. And not only that, but of the 50% that haven't ended in a divorce, how many of those are actually living as one as God has called us to live, right? So I'm not finding that as a marriage therapist and, with my friends. And so, look around at our friends and whatnot. So it's really hard. Marriages are like digging ditches. They're dirty. They're hard, dirty, sweaty work. It's not easy, but it's sanctifying. And I'll get to what that means in a minute. So I asked my female students at Azusa, what advice would you give the Rock Couples audience about marital intimacy and what they need? And they said, make sure you tell them women are like crock pots, slow to warm, but they get cooking. So that's where my female students went. And then they said, if you think women are the weaker sex, try pulling the blankets back to your side. It's not going to happen, fellas. I wake up in the morning and my husband's freezing and I have everything over pillows, blankets, and we have 6 pillows on our bed. Male students, on the other hand, said that only 2 male students of the 16 women in the class said, make sure you play I Can't Get No Satisfaction for the men in the audience. So that's where my male students went. I asked a friend, what is the one thing couples need to make a good marriage? And she said, oral sex. So it's all about sex. So I could stand up here and talk as my students suggest and as my friends talk about positions, how to create the right mood in the bedroom. These responses are very typical. It's all about the physical, but it's not about the emotional. And science is showing us now that it is about the emotional, not the physical. And in fact, it's the emotional that makes the physical amazing. You will have the best sex in your life if you have the emotional going. So, and if you don't have that, it actually hurts your relationship. It actually, if it's only about the physical. And when I talk emotional, a lot of my couples say, yes, I know my spouse loves me. I know my spouse loves me, but they don't have it here. There's not a felt sense of it. It's all up here. So that's what I'm talking about, the emotional, the heart and soul, what you really feel with what you know. And in fact, when you only have the sex and you don't have the emotional component, we call that sealed off sex, right? It's all about reducing sexual tension, achieving the big O, the orgasm, and feeling good about your sexual prowess. So the name of the game is sensation. The more, the better, the different, the hotter, right? And the relationship with the other person is only secondary. So one night stands in a long-term relationship, this is really bad news. Right? So people then begin to feel like, oh my gosh, they're not even aware how disconnected they are. They say, my spouse loves me, but the feeling is disconnection, or they might feel lonely, or they might not feel like their partner has their back. And so they slowly disconnect. And this, in fact, is the #1 cause of divorce. It's not affairs. I've had couples that have had horrible affairs. It's not finances. I've had couples that have fallen financially. It's not the kids. It's emotional disconnection. And when a couple gets emotionally disconnected, that's when the couple is on death's doorstep for divorce. So we can fix affairs. We can fix finances. We can work with that. We can work with kids. We can work with stress. But when a couple gets emotionally disconnected and they don't feel like their partner has their back, that's a couple on death's doorstep. So I'd like to suggest that the Christian picture of relationship and intimacy can be much more vibrant and sexy than the sex practice in the larger culture. And as a result, it's far more fulfilling than what those in the larger culture can even experience. God's got something amazing for us. And because we're not just getting some, but we are I want you to remember this, we're in a covenantal relationship, right? In relationships, when we open our eyes, we need to understand there's someone there who's got our back and who's loving us back. That's why pornography is so devastating. It's not just that it's just a sin, pornography is a sin. It's that when you open your eyes, there is no one there loving you back, and that is not how God wired us. The amygdala, men, women, amygdala, kids, amygdala in the brain goes crazy. The amygdala gets out of whack, right? It's not good for us to be alone. There's lots of scripture about that. Think about Adam in the Garden of Eden, right? What more do you need? You're there with the creator of the universe, and he says, no, I'm going to also give you a helpmate. So God wired us. We've got this amygdala in our brain. Science says you need to have somebody that has your back. And if you don't, you're at 500% higher risk of immune disease deficiencies, heart attacks, strokes. You're not going to live as long. But God, who put the amygdala in our brain? Who wired us that way? So we don't do well when we get disconnected from God. And that's another thing that you should really consider, is to have a very felt sense of relationship with God. So we don't do well without him, and we don't do well without someone else having our back. So love is not just for us, it's about the other. It's not fun and romance, but it's about character change. So the purpose of marriage is to help the spouse become his or her kingdom self and bring them to the fullest potential that God wants for them. So the problem usually isn't the spouse, it's how we view marriage. Let me go back. So what is the meaning of marriage? In Tim Keller's book, he just wrote a book called The Meaning of Marriage, and he says, are we going to look at marriage as a covenantal relationship, or are we going to look at it consumer vendor, right? So when it's not meeting my needs, I'm going to go find somebody else. So what's the difference between covenantal and consumer vendor? right? When we're a consumer vendor, if we don't like the store we're going to, we're going to change stores and go get it somewhere else. Or if we don't like the dry cleaners, we're going to go somewhere else. Or if we don't like the Maytag, we're going to go after, I don't know, what, Frigidaire, whatever. So, and that's how people are dealing with relationships, which is why 1 out of 2 are ending in a divorce. And of the 50%, we forgot about the covenant. Remember, we stood up there and we stood at the altar, or we stood in the ceremony, and we made, this was with God, right? It's a 3-chord happening. It's God, it's our partner, and it's ourself. And so we fall in love, we're infatuated. You know, we do things, crazy things when we fall in love. We'll stay up around the clock talking on the phone, texting, emailing. We'll go to restaurants that we can't, like if we hate Chinese food, we all of a sudden love Chinese food. If we don't like the Padres, never cared about baseball, hated hearing it on the TV with our dad or, brothers, all of a sudden we love the Padres. Everything is symbiotic. We love everything that they love. And that's infatuation, right? But what we're really doing, and that infatuation lasts up to about 2 years, right? Where I love everything that he or she loves. And then after 2 years, that infatuation goes away, reality sets in. I don't really like Chinese food. Never did. I don't know where I thought I was liking it. And I also don't like the Padres, and I don't like romantic movies, and I don't like French cuisine, or, whatever it is. So then we're left with, we think we married a finished statue, but we actually married a block of marble. My daughter's 23. She just got married a year and a half ago. She's still tripping over air pockets, for crying out loud. The brain doesn't finish developing until 23, 24 years old. We don't know what we're doing when we're so young. And really what Tim Keller in The Meaning of Marriage is saying is that we think we're with a finished statue. Hey, this is what I want, this statue, but we really have a block of marble. And we need to hang in there, and we need to help our spouse become the person that God wants them to be. So when we hate what we're seeing, or we hate what we're dealing with, we want to hang in there and say, okay, how are we going to get this person to be the person that God wants them to be? How are we going to play a part in this? That's covenantal relationship. Same things with friends. This isn't just for married people. The research about relationships isn't just for married people. It's for single people. Single people need God, and single people need to know somebody here cares about them, has their back. So it's the same thing. And single people are blocks of marble who is, have to be transformed. So it's not about our spouse, it's about the marriage and how we view marriage. So remember in John 15:12, it said, these words of Christ sum up the greatest command in the meaning of marriage and our sexuality. It's at its core, sexuality is about expressing God's love through our relationship, our bodies, and in our marriages. God's greatest command is to love, and that's exactly what we are dying for. We literally will kill ourselves if we don't feel loved. But we don't kill ourselves, gentlemen. Have you ever thought about killing yourself because you weren't going to get sex? You maybe thought it, but therapists don't have people that want to kill themselves because they haven't had sex. They're upset, but they're not going to kill themselves. But we have people who are lonely and sad because they don't feel love. So love is so powerful for us neurologically and physiologically. So if marriage is for other, what does the other need? It's the same thing that we all need. So I'm going to give you 3 areas to focus on. And the first is we need emotional connection. So our culture says that women want the intimacy and men want the sex. That's a myth. Every man has an amygdala in their brain. Why do men want sex? Men, what does it feel like to have sex? Good? Great? Anything else? How about emotionally? What does it feel like? You feel connection? It's the one place in our culture where people, you know, our culture says men buck up, suck it up, move forward. And it's the one place where a man can feel safe, secure, and loved, and a man can truly be vulnerable. That, ladies, is why men like to have sex, besides the fact that it feels good. It feels good for us, too. We've got nerve endings, too. But in this world, right, it's where else is a man able to be vulnerable if he can't be vulnerable with you? But a lot of times men that I see in couples therapy crave physical, especially emotional connection, just as much as women, but male conditioning, it's uncomfortable asking for it. Men don't even realize this part. They just feel the feeling. They feel what their body wants. And then women sometimes feel used who don't feel that they have a connection with their spouse and often turn them down, and then this creates a huge disconnection. The guys, ladies, the men in my practice whose wives, these hurting couples that I work with, the wives who just give it up to let's just get it over, give them sex, the men grieve. That is so painful for them. They don't want that. They want to know first and foremost that they're cared about and they're loved. And I see a lot of men shaking their heads right now. And in North America, researchers now tell us that we are increasingly living isolated lives. So I've even been reading lately that they want to start, they're like, why do we need marriages? Let's get rid of marriage. So we're living further and further apart. We're disconnected more. Now our culture is saying, hey, let's get rid of marriage. What's the point of marriage anyway? Let's just look at this all legally. So that makes us, I just remember one of my favorite sections in the bookstore before Amazon hit. Haven't been in a bookstore for years now, but my favorite section was the self-help section, right? So it's insidious. It's be isolated, be disconnected, move away, and that's not how we're wired. God did not wire us. We do not do well in that. Most of us have experienced fewer and fewer people to confide in and live our everyday lives with, and sometimes feel emotionally isolated. So we're not living in larger communities anymore. It's starting, when it gets unhealthy, we're living in communities of two. How many have felt like, through moving and whatnot, things have, their communities have been getting a little bit smaller? Yeah, so it's so important for us to stay in community with other believers and other people. So we're not created by God to be isolated or to feel disconnected. So ironically, increasing isolation is happening at a time when scientific studies, all the latest research right now, is giving us clear message that the lack of emotional connection seriously harms us. That's all the latest research. It's all the neuro research. They've done some studies where they took a person and they took a woman and said, hey, let's hook you up. Let's register your anxiety and your pain level, and we're going to shoot a little bit of electricity into you. So they put her on a monitor, put the wires on, put her in a room, shot in a little bit of electricity, and her anxiety and her pain level was off the charts. They took one of the doctors that was there and let the doctor go in and just sit with her and be with her as they shot the same amount of electricity in, and her anxiety level and her pain level actually went down a little bit, just to have another person there with us. Then they took her spouse and they brought her spouse in. She felt very connected and shot the same amount of electricity in, and the pain and the anxiety level almost did not even register. That's what a difference having this connection with our spouse is all about. So people who feel emotionally disconnected, they are at 500% of immune disease deficiencies and higher risk, right? So I've already said that, but relationships with good connections are not the icing on the cake, they're integral to our being. We do very poorly without them. Second thing we need is secure attachment. So That's the technical word for it, but, you know, bottom lining it is security. So we understand as couples, behind all the fighting, yelling, crying, and withdrawing, we can nearly find two struggling human beings with broken hearts longing to be understood, accepted, and loved for who they are. So I have had couples on death's doorstep, and they have so much contempt for each other. And, if they don't get help, if they don't get the good help, they're going to crash and burn. But this is what's going on. They have hatred and contempt for each other. But I'm telling you, this is what's going on underneath of it. This is what we uncover. So one of the things that we look for, therapists that work with couples, good therapists, and be careful with couples therapists. I'm telling you this because one therapy that fails the most is couples counseling, and it's because most therapists have never even taken a course in working with it. So with couples, and even when they take a course, I work with, I teach the couples course over at Azusa. They just get a whole bunch of theory. So after they're graduated, a good couples therapist has got to throw themselves into extra training, supervision, and this has to be years on end. They're going to be your best couples therapist. And I know Dr. Falan is here. I know he's poured into trainings and workshops and whatnot. I spend thousands of dollars, thousands of hours every year supervising, being supervised, showing tapes of my couples. So that's what a good couples therapist does. So be careful. So an attachment bond, Piglet sidled up to Pooh from behind. Pooh, he whispered. Yes, Piglet. Nothing, said Piglet, taking Pooh's paw. I just wanted to be sure of you. Okay, that describes the human condition from birth until we die. So we used to think that this was just for young children and their parents. This is from the birth until the day we die. We need this. In fact, in the concentration camps, the horror of the concentration camps, it was the people who had a secure connection with their family or spouse or friends before they went into the concentration camps. They were the ones that outlasted the others. The ones that didn't have a good connection died off earlier. So if they had a better connection, they were able to outlive the others that were dying off under the horrific conditions that were happening. So it's so important from the day we die, from the day we were born until the day we die. So it's good for our health. Without it, we become more prone to stress, violence, crime, and isolation and lack of secure relationship is infinitely more dangerous to a person's health than smoking. They've now proven that in science. So if you're not going to feel safely secure with your spouse, you might as well start smoking cigarettes. You'll live longer. Not. So why is lack of connection so devastating in marriage? A sense of connection with another is the deepest and most pressing need we have as human beings. Our brain codes this connection as safety, and touch is the most obvious route to this safety. So when we're in distress, if we are touched, all of a sudden our distress actually goes down. Men, guess what? When you hold a baby, your testosterone actually goes down a little bit. You know, it softens, it releases oxytocin, and it actually calms us. So there's evidence that touch floods with the cuddle hormone oxytocin. This chemical turns off stress hormones like cortisol and turns on the reward centers in our brain. So with a simple touch, we feel recognized, soothed, comforted, and in sexual context, aroused. So a lot of times, some of my couples are in distress, or when we feel distress, it doesn't matter what we say in those times. If you reach out and touch your spouse and grab their hand, hey, I'm with you, I get it, I'm right here for you, everything's going to change. You can do that verbally for hours on end, and it's not going to have the same impact as when you say it and do it. Without this sense of connection, which is very different from knowing that your spouse loves you, we feel emotionally deprived, and couples, individuals even begin to feel like they're starving. So when we sense that we are emotionally separated or from or rejected or shut out by our loved one, this triggers the same part of the brain as physical pain. So I don't know, if any of you have experienced this, but it's not uncommon. Like when you're emotionally so hurt when you're in a fight and mistakes are made and things are said, it actually registers in the body as physical pain. Partners speak about the pain of rejection or loneliness in terms of death, right? So we talked about that. We're not going to kill ourselves if we don't get sex, but we will kill ourselves if we feel rejected or if we feel lonely. And I don't want you to think that this is because you're immature or needy. It's also because emotional disconnection with our spouse or another is traumatic, reminding us of vulnerability in a world of danger. So the third thing that we need to go from good to great is think of the word R, A-R-E. So we need to know our partner is safe. The R for me is, are you here for me? Are you available? Hey, I'm upset and this is really bad right now. Can we talk? No, I can't talk, but hey, how about if I talk with you as soon as I get home? I'll be right there. I'm thinking about you and praying for you. So availability doesn't mean you have to show up right away. It just means, hey, I hear you, and I'm going to be available to you. The second is responsive. Do you hear me? Yes, I hear you're distressed. I'll be right there for you. Right? So you respond. You hear the distress. You show up, you're available. If you can't be available right then, it's going to be later, and you're going to express, hey, I hear you. What's going on? I'm right here. And then the E is engaged, and think of emotionally engaged. Are you tracking with me? Like, do you care that I'm in distress? Does it, do you get it? Do you see the pain I'm in? Do you feel it? It's about empathy. It's about being emotionally engaged. They are the three ingredients that make incredible couples last longer. They will not divorce. This is what healthy couples who don't divorce and who don't, of the 50% that don't divorce, not all are living as one, right? We've all been to 50th wedding anniversaries where we know people were lying about the couple. They've just lived as roommates. That is not oneness. The couples that have the oneness have accessibility, have availability, have responsiveness, and have emotionally engaged. They're emotionally available. So ask yourself right now, which part in the ARE do you feel you are missing or your spouse needs more of? Do you have any answers? Anybody want to respond to that? Do you hear me? See, that was a man saying that. That's the amygdala. Are you engaged? Are you emotionally available? Do you get it? Or are you looking at me like a science project? And trying to figure out engineering. How we going to solve this disconnect? That's not emotionally engaged. Emotionally engaged is, oh my gosh, she's distressed or he's distressed and I care about this. So what makes for a great marriage and the best sex you'll ever have is emotional connection, right? Is feeling secure with each other and feeling that your partner is accessible, responsive, and emotionally available. They're your three key ingredients. The the handout that you have on the bottom, there is, the bottom half is a big section addressing the accessibility, responsiveness, and emotionally available. So if you take that, don't take it now, but after the workshop or at some point, go ahead and take that and see how many points you get. And I gave you the key to score it, and kind of see where you're at and where your spouse is at with that. And that'll answer which one of the accessibility, responsiveness, emotionally available is missing, is there, or is missing. So relationship is where your partner is accessible, responsive, and emotionally engaged. It's the best recipe for a happy marriage and the best sex you're ever going to have. So how many of you remember the film Cast Away? Okay, so what happened to him? Who did he have on the island? Wilson, right. And if we were to watch this clip, Wilson, what happens to Wilson? He floats away, right? He falls off, the whale comes, sprays, falls off, and floats out into the ocean. He wakes up and he is what? Distraught. He is distraught, right? He's distraught because his attachment was with Wilson. So yes, this is Hollywood, this is a movie, but this would really happen if this was us. This is pure science. And then what does he do when he sees Wilson is like floating out there? Right, he jumps in the water, tries to swim out there, tries to get him, and does he get him? And what happens to him when he can't get him? He starts to cry. He comes back, he starts to cry. He's on this raft, he's trying to get away from the island, he's trying to get back to civilization because nobody was finding him, and he either left the island or he was going to die on the island. So he's trying to make his way back, but he lost Wilson. He lost the volleyball, and he threw his oars. He was so distraught and so devastated. He took the oars that would actually help him get somewhere, get back to civilization, and threw them in the water and just gave up. That's exactly our brain. That's exactly our amygdala. That would happen. So that's a good movie to watch if you can see it. And when we have this security, when we have this tight connection, the peanut butter is very different than the jelly, right? But even if you're from different planets, like men are from Mars, women are from Venus, men are like waffles, women are like spaghetti, all those kinds of things, right? We can do it because the one thing marriage can't survive is emotional disconnection. So I've seen two diametrically opposed individuals. He's gregarious, he's extroverted, he likes the outdoors, he likes physical. She is a little hobbit, doesn't like people, she likes being by herself, she does not like the outdoors, and she does not like anything physical. And they have the best marriage. They found ways, they've got an emotional connection, and they found ways to stay together. So one of the things that they do is they went and they invested in a motorhome so that they drive it to this remote place where he can go and hike, and she'll start the hike with him and hike for maybe 10 minutes, but then turns around and comes back because that's about as much as she wants to do. And then he'll have other people meet him there, so he continues on, and he goes and hikes the whole day. She goes into her little camper, stops walking after 10 minutes, sits down, gets her book, writes books, is by herself, has the whole day by herself. And then he comes back, and then they have dinner together, and she doesn't hate people, so she'll eat dinner with people. And then at night, she goes to bed, and then he goes and sleeps in a sleeping bag right outside because he loves the outdoors, and all the people are there. And then they get up, and they're happy to see each other in the morning because they have that emotional connection, but they are diametrically opposed. So this comic, how worse? Give me the worst case scenario. So no matter how worse it can be, if you have the emotional connection, you're going to make it. There's no perfect lover, right? You guys all know that. It's only in the movies. Besides, how we learn to love is if we had perfect spouses? How would we learn? I think this is where God actually teaches us to love. It's so easy for me to love all of you, but my husband, if he's going to leave the toilet seat up, if he's going to drop his mustache hair, if he's going to leave his flippin' toothpicks on the eating surfaces, the dental floss on the eating like, that's a whole different ballgame, right? It's like, hey, I love you guys. You're not up in my space. I'm not tripping over your shoes, and vice versa, right? So, so there's no perfect spouse, and this is an illusion. Few of us live with oversexed supermodels. We live instead with ordinary people, men and women who get bad breath, body odors, and unruly hair, who menstruate, PMS, PMDD, OCD, ADD, ADHD, PTSD, who attend AA, NA, OA, SA, and who could experience occasional impotence, who have bad moods, make man sounds, and embarrass us. Okay, let's be real. So our spouse, we don't want perfect performance in the end. We just need to know that it's okay, that we're okay, that our spouse is there for us. So finally, I want to talk about Ecclesiastes 4:12. I want to go back to that. A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer. Three are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. So I actually got some cords here. So I need a couple to be my peanut butter and jelly. And this couple right here said that they would do it. So come on up. Which one of you wants to be the peanut butter and which one wants to be the jelly? Jelly. Okay, so turn here. So, okay. So we have, here, just let me move you around, okay? So, I'm God, by the way. So, I'm here, creator of the universe, right? And then these two people all of a sudden meet each other and they come very close together because they are infatuated and they're actually on an endorphin rush that's going to last for 2 years. So, wrap your cords. Everything you like, he likes. Everything she likes, you like, whether you like it or not. Okay, so wrap your cords. So then they decide, okay, hey, we really like each other. Let's come over and get married. Come on over. So we're going to get married. Isn't this awesome? Making a covenant. What do we say when we get married? Till death do us part. What's the scripture? What's the scripture? For better or worse.
Rich or poor.
Rich or poor.
Sickness, health.
How about torn asunder? Where does that come in? What God has joined together.
Let no man.
Right. So then they're here. They kiss. Go ahead and kiss. We now pronounce you man and wife. But now you're going to go party. So go over there and do your reception and honeymoon and okay. So here I am. Then they come to church. Come to church. Go home. Go home. Somebody said maybe we should pray. Come pray. Go home.
Okay.
Okay, so we need kids. Who wants to be their kids? Come on up. They need kids. Let's have 3. So jump on them and pull on them. Come on, I need some more kids. Somebody come up and be a kid. Yeah, there we go. Come up and jump. Jump on them, push on them, pull on them. Okay. I need a boss. I need 2 bosses.
That lady.
I need a boss. Pull on him. Pull on him, boss. I need yeah, pull on both, whatever, how many. I need another boss to pull on her and them.
I need lunch money.
Lunch money, yeah, live it up, kids. Yeah, pull on them. Break the cord apart because she's got to go with them because she needs lunch money and you're busy at work, right? You also need a Navy thing. You need to go away for a while. So walk away, take them away, guys. Take boss, take them away, commander. Okay, go back, go back. Come back. Okay, one of you come pray. Pray. Okay, go away. Say thank you, Lord, love you, bye. Okay, so this is what's happening, right? And the cords, what does life do? It separates us, it disconnects us. Like all the stress comes in, the kids come in, keep jumping kids, keep pulling on them. Bosses, keep pulling them away. I mean, this is constant, right? It's nonstop. It's nonstop, okay? So what covenant is what? What's covenantal relationship? Who are we missing here? Right, and we need to have this going on all the time. Do you know that praying together is like the prelude? It's like foreplay, what foreplay is to intercourse. It's that emotionally connecting, it's that tight. So this is so important. We've got to, in all of, oh, you guys can sit down now, thanks so much. Everybody give them a big hand. So we need to really stay connected with God. Because when we're connected with God, we tap into the creator of the universe and all of his resources. Life is hard, right? That is that's like a major perk for us to have. To be believers is to be close with him and to pray with him, praying together. So praying together, I cannot tell you how important that is and how important it is to do that maybe even on a daily basis or even at night, before you go to bed or when you get up in the morning. So we need that secure connection with God individually, and we also need it as a couple. So that is really missing a lot in the marriages that I see that come in, because we get trapped into going to work, doing different activities, the kids, the work, the stress, all of that, and all the activities that we're involved in, and that's where a lot of the disconnection comes from. So if you have this connection, okay, so science is saying if you have this connection, you're going to live longer, you're going to have less diseases, and you're going to not have as much anxiety and depression. But God is saying, hey, if you do this, this is unbreakable, right? That's what he's telling us in our scripture. So it's going to be amazing. When we do this, when a couple has this, they know they've got each other's back, they know that they are secure, then they can go on military deployments for months on end, years on end. I have a friend who's like this with her husband, and her husband just left for 2 years. They're going to make it. That's why the military has an incredibly high rate of divorce. And it's because they don't have this before they go. If you have this and you get put into the gulag in Russia or, concentration camps, whatever, you're going to survive longer. But God is saying, do this, because this is absolutely unbreakable. Okay. So she gently tries to persuade Captain Horatio that it might be more intimate without the armor. So the fights that matter are never about sex, money, or the kids. It's just the surface. They are usually about feeling the loss of emotional, safe connection. So the most terrible trap in a marriage is when one person really wants to say, "Where are you? Don't I matter to you?" but instead becomes critical and demanding while the other person feels hopeless. You know, when we get angry, anger is just a secondary emotion. Underneath the anger is what's really going on. When we unpack the anger, sometimes we see pain, we see loneliness, we see someone who feels like they're desperate. So anger is just the tip of the iceberg. We got to figure out from our spouse what's going on underneath of that. What's really going on? What are you longing for? What's missing? So in love, you don't need to be rich, smart, talented, or funny. You just need to be there. That's all we need. So couples spend at least a lot of money on getting married, right? How much? Do we have anybody that paid more than $25,000 for their wedding? Or we know people that did, right? Most couples wait 6 to 7 years, the research says, before they go to get help. And they don't want to spend the money on getting help. The average cost of divorce is $30,000 to $100,000. $100,000 each. I just had friends from my old church. They just ended up divorcing. It's so sad, and they each spent about $100,000 fighting over the kids and attorney fees. Average cost of fixing marital problems with a therapist who is really trained, 12 to 20 sessions. We're looking at $1,200 to $2,000 as an investment. So, and then prayer, absolutely free. Praying together, no cost. So, from the beginning to the end, the Bible itself is a story about marriage. It begins with Genesis and the marriage of Adam and Eve, and it ends in Revelation with the wedding of the Lamb and the marriage of Christ and the church. This is God, this institution is God ordained. This is God given to us. Throughout the Old Testament, love for his people is described as the love of a husband for his bride. In the New Testament, Christ embodies this love. He comes as the heavenly bridegroom to unite himself to forever to his bride. So God is describing himself in terms of being in a marital relationship with us. There's something about this that he has his hand on. This is a very important part of our lives. So whether we're married or not, when we are in relationship with another, it's covenantal, as we are commanded to love. So I want you to begin to think that way. We are to help others become the person God created them to be, right? Remember, covenant versus consumer. So what I want you to do, well, do you have any questions first? Because I have a little exercise for you to do. Are there any questions that I can answer? Any thoughts? You know what? You know where a lot of this is, the research is in a book called Hold Me Tight by Susan Johnson. It's all the latest research. But just don't forget, scriptures on being commanded to love in Ecclesiastes 4:12. I don't know if Sue Johnson is a therapist or not, is a Christian or not. She's from Ottawa, Canada, and she is one of the leader in all the marital relationship research right now. And if you go about having a relationship the way I described, 70% are cured, 90% at the very least get better. That's unheard of when it's a 50-50 chance. Yeah, infatuation. She was saying that she heard that infatuation lasted about a month or two and then people get out of a relationship. When you really fall for someone, you fall. And it lasts up to 2 years. And in fact, then it goes away. And in fact, most couples divorce around the 4th year. So isn't that interesting that it only lasts 2 years? Then you have a year to try to pull it together and get with reality. And then if you make it, great. If you don't, it breaks. So it lasts up to 2 years. Well, you just want to ask them, what kind of training have you had? Where have you studied? Did you ever take a course in working with a couple? If they say no, okay, how have you trained? If they've only taken a workshop, even if they've only taken a 4-day workshop, that's not the best, right? A good couples therapist is in ongoing training. Dr. Marcial Fallon, sitting right here, he's a marriage and family therapist as well. You know, one time he called me, hey, where are you, Marcial? Yeah, I'm going up to LA. I'm going to a couples conference for the weekend. Like, good couples counselors are in training all the time. They're up with the latest research. So that's why a lot of, you know, when we teach, even, you know, I'm teaching over at Azusa Pacific, so we teach people lots of different theories, but theories are not proven, right? They're just theories. Now, with the latest research, we have evidence-based research. We know now what works and what doesn't work, but it's going to take a while for different programs to catch up to it. And in my couples class, I do teach what really works, but that can only be one small percentage of the whole class because the Board of Behavioral Sciences in California is going to ask them hundreds of questions about all these theories and all these methods and whatnot. So they have to know all of that, and they, you know, to really practice, you know, and this is what specialists are, right? So you have to specialize in something. You wouldn't want to go to a doctor for cancer that just had, you know, general training and is just a general MD, right? You want somebody that's trained and studied and done research in the cancer field. Same thing with marriage and family therapists. So on the bottom of your sheet, I have some, or on the top of your sheet, what I'd like you to do right now is kind of test out what I've said and answer these 4 questions with just your partner. When was the first time you felt disconnected from your partner? What was it that made you feel disconnected? In the midst of fighting and arguing, what are you longing for? And did your partner know that? Did you feel like you could turn toward them and tell them about your fear or need? And when have you felt the most connected to your partner, and what was it that made you feel connected? And then what is it like for you to pray together? So go ahead and take a few minutes and answer those questions with your spouse. Okay, guys. So I had two really good questions. One is that, hey, what do I do if my husband doesn't know how he feels? So, okay, so men in our culture, we're not wired to do feelings, right? But we all have the amygdala in our brain, so the feeling is there. So we ask, so tell me what it's like when you say, I know you're there. Tell me what that's like for you. You know, what is that like for you? How do you describe that? I want to know what it's like for you when you say, you know, I'm here. I want to get what that's like for you, right? Do you see how that's going a little bit deeper? It's not just, oh yeah, I know he says I'm there. It's, tell me what that's like for you. Do you feel secure there? Does it feel solid to you? You know, so you're pressing, you're going a little bit deeper. And then if sometimes we ask our spouse a question like, what are you longing for? Well, and you get, I don't know, I'm not sure. That just means it hasn't had enough thought yet, right? So what do you want from your spouse? What do you guys want from your spouse that you can't get in the world, that the world's not going to give you? Loyalty. What else? Forgiveness. What else? Security. So I need to know you're going to be the one person that's going to be loyal to me no matter what. I need to know that you're going to be the one person that when I screw up, you're going to be the one person to forgive me. I need to know that you're going to be there no matter what. No matter how bad it gets, you're not going to walk away from this. Okay, so that's the longing. So that's how you kind of piece it apart. That's how you ask each other and piece it apart and go deeper with each other. And if you do that, you're going to get to that stuff that's stuck up in the amygdala, and you're going to start putting it into practice, and you're going to start knowing it. And then you're going to have a bond that you're not going to have with other people, right? Because healthy marriages are those that have a window between them, but have walls to the outside. You know, and doors. So think of a courtyard, like your marriage is a courtyard. You go to church, you let other believers in, you open up the door, you let them come in, but there are certain things that you only share with your spouse, you and your spouse knows. All right, guys, so great to have you today. Have a great lunch, and then come back for a great second session.